that signal just yet. Here we go. We are now live. That's awesome. I want to welcome everybody. It is Wednesday night at 7 o'clock, and y'all know what that means. That means it is time for another awesome Conversations with Cougars. And I am so very pleased to have my guest this evening. You guys will recognize her, Sylvia Hemby. Good evening, Miss Hemby. I'm so glad you're there and being able to chat with me tonight.
I appreciate being invited. It's a big honor.
Well, there's many folks who have been asking for Mrs. Hemby, and tonight, guys, we have her for the next 45 minutes or so. And for those of you who were not around during the Hemby's tenure, Miss Hemby was one of the first groups of teachers at the school, and her daughters, of course, Beth and Carla, came through the school in the 80s and were cheerleaders and so much more. The school just has meant so much to the Hemby family, as it has to many of us. And that's why I've asked Miss Hemby to be with us tonight. She also was the cheerleading sponsor for so many years. And I know she's got some awesome stories to share with us tonight. So thank you for having some time. And we will hopefully, when folks roll through here and have some fun things to say, I'll let you know that they're there and let you know who it is as well. And Mrs. Hemby, Sissy Carol Reynolds and Charles Bronson are already on there with us. So thank you, guys. And Mrs. Hemby, for folks who may not know you from back during your time at Northview, when did you start working at Northview or in the Dothan City schools? And then when did you retire from the school system?
Bernard, I actually started at Dothan High School. And I was at Dothan High School for 5 years, and then Northview was built. And some of us at Dothan High were transferred to Northview. That was very exciting. Not many teachers get to open a school. We did, and that was the most fun. And I would like to share, if it's okay, some of the beginnings of Northview High School that people may not know about.
And I will tell you, as you're about to do that, we've not had a teacher's perspective yet who transitioned from Dothan High to Northview in the late 70s. So I'm very much excited to hear your experience. So please share with us.
We did get to choose where to go, and they did honor our request as much as possible. I chose Northview just because it was closer to my house. I also knew that my children would be zoned for that school. It was sad leaving Dothan High. I'd been a part of that faculty for 5 years, in Dothan High at that point was a well-known school throughout the state of Alabama, but we were too big. We had to do something. Classrooms were too crowded, and thus a new school. The heartbreaking part of leaving Dothan High School was the fact that students who were going to be seniors did not want to leave. And they were upset that a new school was being built and that they would not graduate from Dothan High School. This is when I think Cougar spirit started, because parents and teachers realized that we had to change their mindset. We had to have a positive attitude about Northview High School. One of the first things that they did was to select a student committee, and it was the responsibility of this student committee to come up with colors, mascot, logo. The committee was composed of students with some input from adults. Billy Gilbert, Brent's and Vanessa's father, had a lot to do with this. It was his company, Herff Jones, that makes classrooms, that designed the logo, designed the Cougar, designed the colors or suggested the colors. Actually, the way I understand it, groups of colors were presented to the students, and the students actually selected what is commonly called maroon and gold, but really it's more of a cardinal red. and gold. You all know what I'm talking about. And we had a huge meeting of students, parents, anybody who wanted to be involved. And we presented what this was going to be. In my talking that night, I started off my presentation saying that there's a new disease in town. This disease is cougar fever. Dothan Eagle took that and went with it. And that was the beginning of what turned into be Cougar Spirit. From then on, we saw the biggest change in the attitude of students, but it took parents and teachers working together and getting the seniors, the students who were going to be seniors, on the same page with us. The very first pep rally, I knew we had made it because the noise was unbelievable. The bleachers, there was lots of things about the building that was not finished. The bleachers were not fastened down. As the students stood and kept standing, I was so afraid that someone would be hurt. But it worked. There was many parents at the pep rally. And from then on, we were on our way.
Well, you know, until colors were decided upon, until a mascot was recognized, I bet those seniors to be coming over from from Dothan High, they had nothing to attach a loyalty to. All they knew was Dothan High. That's all the city ever knew. But gosh, that just seems like that was such an exciting time for all involved. The creation of a brand new school, and just, oh gosh, I wish I would have been there. I mean, I was just a kid at the time. But Miss Hemby, I want to pause us because there are so many folks who've rolled in that I've got to let you know who's here. And I hope, guys, if I miss you, I'm sorry, but they're rolling in so fast. There's a lot of great comments that I'll let you read afterward, but here goes the list. Jennifer Ballard Matheny.
Great teacher.
Coach Rick Cleveland.
Haven't seen him in years.
The young girl who grew up across the street from you, who was about Carla's age. I'm not calling her name right now.
I see.
Coach Randy Hicks. Patrick Fitch. Shirley C. Miss C, I've got news for you. Tonight's conversation with Mrs. Hemby is going to rival in numbers yours. And right now, I've told you every week, yours is the highest number of views. We may be pushing it tonight with Mrs. Hemby. Let's see. Oh, and okay. Carla has gotten on. There you go. That's awesome. We got so many folks, so many great comments. But let's go back to that first pep rally. That has to have been in the first month or maybe the first couple of weeks that the school even opened, because we had football.
It was
first fall. What do you recall other than the concern that you had about potential for injury?
I don't even remember what the theme was that the cheerleaders used. I can remember a lot of them. I don't remember that one. I do want to tell everybody that Mr. Smith did not speak at the first pep rally, did not even attend the first pep rally. So after about 2 weeks of his not attending, I had heard him speak. I knew he was very entertaining. So before the third pep rally, I went to his office and I said, I want you to come to our pep rallies. The kids need to get to know you. You need to get to know these kids. Would you please come and speak at the end of the pep rally or right before the guys are introduced? He did, and he stole the show. He spoke his entire presentation in rhyme. He told me afterwards that that's just was a natural thing for him. He did not have any notes. He did not write anything down. He just talked about the football game. And that is where his famous words started. You'll have to help me. Have your usual faces. No, have your smiling faces in your usual places. don't meet me there, beat me there. Well, he ended with that, and the kids just went wild. After he did that, from then on, he spoke at every pep rally. And after about 2 more times of that, when he started his closing lines, just as you all did, the students joined in with him. My favorite pep rally, where Mr. Smith actually sort of performed, had a Western theme. And I had great mothers who helped us as much as they could. And a mother found a white rhinestone cowboy outfit. And Mr. Smith walked in with that rhinestone cowboy outfit. We had white boots for him, but they were too small. So he held a boot in each hand and walked in almost as if he was riding a horse. Again, that student body went wild. He always stole the show.
He really, really did. And by the time I came through, obviously I was the class of 86. In between, Beth was 85, Carla 87. And by those years, he was in prime form at the pep rallies. I don't remember a single pep rally where at the end of the pep rally, when he was going through his poem, you could hear him. The students completely drowned him out. Then the band played everybody out of the gym. And I want you to go back to those first years, maybe even that first year, and describe how the Cougar spirit and the way that it was around the school, not necessarily just in pep rallies, but just around the school, about what the vibe was like for teachers, for students, for everybody who was at this brand new school.
And we had some adjusting to do. Things were different. A lot of things were not completed that we had to wait. I can remember there were no pencil sharpeners in the room. We had to be patient. But the attitude was so very positive. Now, having a winning football team helped. I had to talk to Harry Wayne today because I couldn't quite remember everything about that first year, but we were 6-4 that first year. Mm-hmm. The crowds at the games were just unbelievable. Parents really got involved. It was not a teacher thing alone. We really had so much enthusiasm from the booster club, from parents, band parents, not just football player parents. Everybody wanted this school to succeed, and it did.
You know what was unique was in the mid-70s, Dothan High School went to the state finals 2 straight years. And then not 3 years, 4 years later, we have a brand new school across town. So having some tradition in the 70s from a football standpoint at Dothan High, and now Coach Parrish and the new Cougars having immediate success that first season, that created some real, I would call it an instant rivalry, at least on the football field. I know that in the community, it was building, but on the football field, it was immediate. They may have been friends off, when the games weren't being played, but not when it was kicked off on Friday nights.
As you probably already know, the second year we went 9-1. Mm-hmm. The third year, 7-3, and then 1981 all the way. What new school is ever state champs in their 4th year of operation? It was just unbelievable.
Well, let's talk about your role. How did you become, not only I know that you were a full-time teacher in the school, but how did you become what was known as the cheerleading sponsor? What did that mean? What was that role?
I was cheerleader sponsor at Dothan High. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how I got that, why I was asked to do that, except Jim and I both were very involved in the sports programs. We were at every football game. We both just loved football. I had been a cheerleader in high school, so it was something that was dear to me. And when the person at Dothan High was resigning, and I don't remember why, she came and asked me, she was a very good friend of mine and Jim, Lydia Ann Merritt, some people might remember her, and asked me, would I do that? And I, not knowing what was ahead of me, did say yes, and it was fun from then on. I felt like that my role was not just to train cheerleaders to be good cheerleaders, but to represent our school with character, with integrity, and to be ladies at all times, which is probably sounds very old-fashioned today. And then I was asked to continue my role at Northview, and I went over to Northview with that same goal in mind. And at the same time, to concentrate on how we could be of assistance in supporting the football players, the basketball players, because we cheered for basketball also. Matt Kirkland was the first basketball coach, and he and I were close friends. We had been at Auburn together. And at the same time, besides just concentrating on the sports part of cheerleading, I knew that school spirit was so important. And that was our job, was to foster school spirit.
Did you have any of the girls who cheered for you at Dothan come over and become cheerleaders for those first year or two at Northview?
Yes, and I bet I can't remember who they were. If they were zoned for Northview, then they could try out to be Northview cheerleaders, and we also had tryouts for Dothan High cheerleaders. And so some of them did. They had to change their color uniforms.
I'm going to take you off the hook, and I'm going to put Tina Keziah Hass, as well as Shirley C. and Tracy Keziah Daniels, who are all watching right now, as well as Cece. Who are some of those girls who you remember who were Dothan High cheerleaders who later became Northview? Now, Cece says, was Kara West one of those girls?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, she was.
All right, we got Aristotle Kirkland says to tell you hello. We got a whole bunch of more folks have rolled in here. Rick Cazenave sends his regards. Of course, Tina and Tracy say hello. Let's see. Okay, well that's it for that I see right now. But
I think Cece Urudia was one of those that came over. No, Treva did never come to Northview.
Well, I want to pivot for just a minute. Miss Hemby, I had on our show, Jackie Bingham Miller was on the show a couple of months ago. And Jackie has as much Cougar spirit now as she did when she was in school. She was awesome. So many great stories and memories. And whether it was going to cheerleading competitions or leading the team out on Friday night, she loved the pep rallies. She couldn't say enough great things about her experiences at Northview, and particularly with you as well.
And I love Jackie. But I loved all my girls. And they're still my girls.
Of course, of course. Let's talk about how do I put this? What kind of qualities, what did you try to instill in the girls who were on the team? I know that you had a lot of time throughout the year, not just the Friday nights or the basketball games, but you were with them most of the time preparing, and y'all were together, whether you're practicing or going to competitions. What were some of those life lessons? What were some of those things? Because I know you saw them all as your girls that you were hoping to instill in some of them.
I had a mother who had a high school daughter, and the mother who had been a cheerleader with me stopped me one time in the hall at Northview, and she said, I want to tell you something. She said, there are so many things you taught us that we didn't realize at the time you taught us how important they were.
Mhm.
And I just sort of looked at her. She said, how to do our makeup, what kind of jewelry to wear, how to always act like ladies, good table manners. That's not part of cheerleading, as you would think, but it's part of developing as a person and as an adult. And she said, now I can teach my daughter those things. That's the rewards of being a teacher.
I was going to say, there are so many collateral rewards that I think that teachers are able to hopefully garner from their years of leading young people. And gosh, to have comments like that, I suspect that's not the only, far from the only time you've had those comments. So that must resonate, maybe give you a good feeling about how your time with all of these girls was.
And Bernard, just like I'm sure your coaches did, we had to stress grades.
Mhm.
We couldn't let cheerleading take the place of studying and making good grades. I'm sure all the coaches did the same thing with their players. And yes, I tried to treat them just like I did Beth and Carla.
Well, since you've mentioned them, let's bring them up for just a couple of minutes. Beth and Carla were, of course, in the 80s, they were cheerleaders. They had as much Cougar spirit and pride as any students at that time, and probably since. But from a parent standpoint, what was it like having your children come through Northview while you're a teacher and the sponsor of the cheerleader? What was it like having them on the campus with you?
I think it probably bothered them more than it bothered me.
Mhm.
That I probably learned more about this later than at the time. I'm sure it was very difficult for them. Jim was an administrator in central office. They heard education from the time they came home. That was the topic at the dinner table. Neither one of them wanted to be a teacher.
Mhm.
I think I understand why. So it was probably more difficult for them. I'm trying to think of some incidents that I can tell.
Now, knowing that I think all Hemby family members are currently watching or will watch later, here's my only question on those lines. Did you ever threaten to send either of the girls to the central office for any disciplinary reasons?
No. Carla, can you tell when they
I'll tell on
pulled those
myself.
April
Yes.
Fools
Hey, Carla.
I'll
of
tell
course.
on myself.
Hey, Carla, tell us, please.
There is no way my senior year that I was taking her exam. No way. And I had a test that I had absolutely failed. I made a 66 and I heard about it
Mhm.
all week long. So from then on, every test that we had, she hauled me into her office/laundry room, had me sitting on the floor, and she caught every question on every chapter, knowing it was not going to be on the test. And
Right.
she made sure that I did well after that. Well, I was worried I was still going to have a B and have to take the exam. So I set my alarm at 3 o'clock in the morning. I went into her office. I found her grade book and I changed the 66 to an 88. And she did not remember I had made the 66. And I even went so far and opened up the filing cabinet, changed the grade on the test paper to an 88. And my philosophy is any student who has their mother as their teacher, their mother as a cheerleader sponsor, their mother as an FBLA sponsor, has earned those 22 points. And I can tell it now because statute of limitations has run.
It has far run. So thank you for sharing that, Carla. Mrs. Hemby, I know that for every one of those, we got to get serious about our school talks. There are 20 happy, fun experiences and memories you have. So I want you to share with us Friday night with the girls cheering, Friday night lights, the excitement that you felt with your girls down there, all the cheerleaders. We're about to kick off in Rip Hughes. What were Friday nights like for you?
We had to be at the stadium very early. You had to be early anyway to get a seat, especially those beginning years. I think one of the most exciting things was in Larry Roberts' day when he kicked that ball and it went through the goal post. I don't know who out there will remember that, but we intimidated them to begin with. But I had to check to make sure that everybody was dressed appropriately and had everything they were supposed to have. One of the funny things that I remember is we were playing, I believe, in Phoenix City. And I want to say we were getting close to whether or not we would be in the state playoff.
Mhm.
And I did not know about this till afterwards, but Andy Bird had been with her family in Auburn, and her mom told her to get everything ready, but it was time to head to Phoenix City, and she was missing her uniform. She was so upset. She said she had to cheer at that ball game.
Mhm.
Would you believe that her mom started trying to find people who had not left Dothan, could not find anybody, but she did talk to Sandra Hanahan, and she said, Nagel, I know somebody with a plane that I think would fly it if you're willing to pay for it. They did. They met the man at the airport.
No
Andy
way.
got her uniform and she cheered that night, and her daddy has never let me forget how much that cost him.
That's incredible. That's awesome.
That's
I've
the
heard-
kind of parents we had.
Well, I've heard of stories, like I had Brian Jackson, who was a kicker many years after our tenure. He left his kicking tee in Dothan. And if I remember the story, Brian, and forgive me if I don't, police they took the kicking tee from Dothan all the way to Enterprise. But this story is far surpasses. That's incredible. That's awesome.
And she cheered, and she meant that she was going to, and her parents made it possible. There's something I remember about your dad.
Mhm.
We were on our way to Bay Minette,
Mhm.
and our bus broke down. Now, I am pretty sure if we were playing Bay Minette, it may have been, I believe it was a playoff game. But anyway, our bus broke down. We were beside the road, and your dad was the first Dothan person that came by that recognized what was happening. He stopped. He stayed with us. He started flagging down any Dothan car, and we would try to put at least 2 cheerleaders in that car. We sent them all on to the game. Carla thinks she remembers that she stayed with me, and your dad then got us to the game.
Wow.
Carla, were we late?
Third quarter.
Third quarter, Carla is saying. So
Wow.
your dad made a supreme sacrifice to make sure that the cheerleaders got to the ball game.
Wow.
Those are the kind of parents that supported our school.
Well, I'm hoping to get Coach Bubba Johnson on here sometime soon. With him having driven so many bus trips, I'm sure Coach Johnson has lots of awesome stories. But I still can't get over a cheerleading uniform being flown from Dothan.
It did.
That's
Of
awesome.
course, he had to charge them not just for going, but for coming back too.
That's right. It was a round trip.
But it was worth it. John
Yeah.
Bird would tell you that it was worth it.
I have no doubts. Let's talk about I guess what I remember during my time, and I don't know if this changed over years, but when they had tryouts and when you guys had tryouts and when they had the announcements, it was such a stressful and exciting time, equally, and depending on who you ask. It was exciting for some and stressful for others, but it was very competitive. You had lots of girls who were very accomplished athletically and from a cheer standpoint, but you couldn't put everybody on your cheer squads. I know that these days you may see 30 or 40 girls and boys on cheer squads, but back then it was pretty tight. You only had a certain number each year. And I guess my question to you is, how did you guys develop the system of how you, or the criteria and the judges? How did all that, is that something that evolved over time? Or did the city dictate to you guys how to do something like that?
No, I guess I was handed down at Dothan High criteria and how to judge. And I carried that with me to Northview. We always had out of town judges. I had nothing to do with the cheerleaders that were selected. There were out of town judges who had no names, just numbers. And it was strictly what those 3 or 4 judges decided. It's the worst part of being a cheerleader sponsor today. I would be called a cheerleader coach. It's the worst part of it because there are tears. I had a person say one time where they cry if they win and they cry if they lose. They cry for those that don't make it.
Yeah.
And it's very stressful. I was glad my granddaughter never desired to be a cheerleader.
There were teacher ratings too.
It was also based, Carla just reminded me, it was also based on teacher ratings. And that had to do with behavior in the classroom.
But you know, if there wasn't such school spirit, if we didn't have such a thriving sports program and football team, if we didn't have all of these factors out there, it wouldn't have meant as much to be on the cheer squad. So, and I mean this as a compliment to you as a teacher, to you as a parent, as well as the cheerleading sponsor, that it all fostered such a vibrant school that it was important to so many to represent the school, whether you're in the cheer, on the cheer team or some other capacity. It could be band, it could be football, whatever it is. But it really showed kids at such a young age, not everybody gets a trophy. Not everybody is awarded just because you show up.
I tried to teach the girls and emphasize to them that at all times, whether they were in uniform or not in uniform, because people knew who they were, they represented Northview High School. And they were to remember that at all times. That was just the kind of thing I had been taught as a high school cheerleader.
Let's step away from Friday Night Lights and the pep
Okay.
rallies and all of that. Let's go to what no one except the cheer team and the sponsor and the parents ever see. It's all the hard work that the girls put into making banners, perfecting their routines, creating the cheers or the theme for each week. What kind of memories? I know those have to be fun memories at times.
They were fun memories. Carla asked me this week when she knew what we were doing tonight. She said, Mother, you suppose how many bars of candy you bought from Powell Produce to put in the players' lockers? Because we tried to have something in your locker every week. And I said, Carla, there is no telling how much money we spent or how many bars of candy we bought, but it was all worth it. The way we had money to do things is we sponsored a little girls' clinic in the summer where I believe from ages maybe 5 to 3, Carla saying from 3 to maybe 10 would come and learn cheers and learn the dance routines, and mainly they just enjoyed being around those pretty big girls. And the first year we did it, we had to do it a second week because we had so many people to enroll. That gave us the money that we needed for anything we wanted to do for the year. And that continued for quite some time, even after I was not involved anymore.
Well, it was certainly special on a Thursday afternoon when the football team came in from its walkthrough the day before a game, and you could open your locker and it was all decorated with streamers and candies. That was the best. That was great.
And I loved the cheerleaders putting crepe papers on all the cars that were parked. If you passed by Northview on a Friday, you knew there was school spirit at that school.
where was your driveway the key place for banners to be made, or where did all that take place?
My driveway, any place at Northview that we could get. I know Jim used to hear certain songs and he would say, oh, I know that song, because they had practice routine in our backyard. Celebration is what I think of to
Yeah.
begin with.
Yeah.
That's the first one that comes to mind. We were definitely a family affair for Northview. And I know a lot of families, I think about your family as being that way, and I know a lot of families that were that way. I'll have to bring Jim into the picture. We were, and Harry Wayne and I talked about this today, the ball games at Enterprise were very competitive, always, from the very beginning.
Most years.
Very beginning. And we were there for a game and we were on the visitor side, but a lot of Enterprise people were on the visitor side. So they were complaining because our kids were standing up. That's just what our kids did. And we knew they were complaining, and Jim was getting upset because they were getting on to the kids. And I said, Jim, just cool it. Well, the next thing we knew, a policeman had come up and was talking to our kids. Well, Jim jumped up and I thought, oh no, they're going to put him in jail. So he went down to where the policeman was and he said, sir, he introduced himself. He said, our kids are sitting where they were assigned to sit. This is the visitor side. We are visitors. Where else can they be? You don't want them just standing around down in front. You will surely say something to them. Now, it is not right that you're getting onto them and punishing them. They are where they're supposed to be, and you're trying to punish them for showing their school spirit. The policeman said something to the Enterprise folks and he walked away.
Yay, good job.
Jim did not want any child hurt in any way that had not done something wrong. But that's just one thing that stands out in my mind, that I remember that he wanted those kids to have a good time. And if they wanted to stand up, it was okay for them to stand up. Do not know why Enterprise people were sitting on our side.
You know, that it didn't take them long to have some issue with Northview or Dothan.
No, not at all.
But let's talk about the interplay between the cheerleaders and the band and the flag corps. And how did you guys figure out the routine for a Friday night? Because when the cheerleaders would be lined up in the end zone with the big banner for the team to run through, and everybody comes through, instantly the band knew what to do, the cheer squad knew what to do, but that takes a lot of coordination.
The captains of our squad, we always had a captain and a co-captain, would work with whoever the band had assigned to work with us, and they worked it out together. I tried to let the students do it, and I didn't get involved. I always had great cheerleader captains every year, and the drummers actually practiced with us so that they would know the beat of what we were doing. And then it was a student coordinated activity. They worked it out. They worked it out. And the pep rallies would not have been what they were without the band, without the majorettes, without the flag corps. It took everybody to make it work. I do remember being fussed at by one of the coaches, don't think it was Harry Wayne, because I had let some of the guys skate. What kind of skates was it? As part of our pep rally.
He was afraid you were going to let him get hurt?
No, he was afraid we were going to hurt the gym floor.
Oh,
I did not even think about that. And some of the guys did fancy skating. The kids loved it, but it never crossed my mind that we might damage that very expensive gym floor. So from then on, I asked permission. Another really neat pep rally, it was, the theme was the 50s, and Randy Hicks and Pam Hicks came in on a motorcycle in their 50s attire.
Awesome.
And then they danced in the middle of the gym floor. If you will remember, Red, Carla, help me. No, that was on TV. Red Holland. I got him to come and talk and do his thing. Anything that we could think of to create excitement, we tried to do.
Well, whatever you guys came up with each week, it worked. It absolutely worked, because as we've said many times tonight and in previous conversations with others, I could not imagine a high school and a gym and a situation having more school spirit than when we would leave those pep rallies. It really served it, not only served its purpose, but it bled through the whole school. And it wasn't just on Fridays, it was all through the week. But we've got a few more minutes. And guys, I'm talking with Mrs. Sylvia Hemby. She was a longtime teacher in the school and sponsor for the cheerleading squad, and her daughters Beth and Carla were graduates in the 80s. And if there's one or two families that when you say a Northview family, the Hembys are certainly mentioned in that, that's for sure. Miss Hemby, let me ask you, now that you've retired, now that you're no longer with the school system, just looking back, being part of Dothan City Schools, originally or before Northview, obviously you were with Dothan, but what did it mean to be a school teacher in representing our school, Northview?
I may tear up. I loved what I did. I loved being with kids. I loved seeing progress being made by kids. I taught accounting. I taught computer applications. I had a co-op program. Accounting was my favorite thing to teach. I had so many kids who went on to major in accounting, would call me when they got their CPA. Oh. That's when you know that you have touched a life. The hardest thing I did was to retire. Left Northview mainly because Carla had premature twins. And even though she ended up with a great nanny, I felt like that it would take all of us that very first year. And I never regretted leaving for that purpose. 3 years later, the kids were doing fine. And I caught myself getting a little bit bored. And I went to Seminole County in Dawsonville, Georgia, a small school, about the size of school that I went to in Headland High School. Complete different rural area, but they did have a good football team, and I enjoyed going to those games. I promised Jim before I went over there that I would not let them know that I had cheerleading experience, even though I said to him, I'm too old to do that anymore. They will want somebody young. But I did, behind the scenes, help with pep rallies and try to show that cheerleader coach, all of them, the importance of involving the whole student body as much as possible in just creating school spirit, because a child is going to do better at a school where they enjoy being at school. But I did 28 years with Dothan City, 13 years with Seminole County, for a total of 41 years, and I loved every minute of it. It's a heartbreaking occupation at times, because there are times you have to accept the fact that you cannot help every child, but it's the most rewarding experience when you can. I think I was just meant to be a teacher, and there's many other teachers that feel that way. I have a close relationship still with Trill Osley. She and I taught in rooms next to each other at Northview. with Tallulah Snell, both of them were business teachers like me, with Michelle Armstrong,
Andrews. Michelle Andrews.
Michelle Andrews, where did I get Armstrong?
Because you taught Michelle Armstrong.
She was an Armstrong before she was Andrews. Michelle was an Armstrong. Okay, Michelle Andrews, Catherine Foster. We four get together every 2 to 3 weeks. Of course, we have lost a lot of our teachers, and that's always sad, especially Martha Burnham, because she and I went to the same high school. Several of those were very dear friends: Jean Hollis, Larry Williams, Norma Jean. But then it's so much fun to run into some of them. Lamar Helms, have you had him? Oh, he was a big Cougar supporter.
I have asked Mr. Helms, and he and I are still talking.
Okay, I will encourage him to do that. Sonia Jernigan, I ran into just last week. When we see each other, we all stop and hug and talk about Northview. Memories just never go away. Harry Wayne and I talk about that, all the memories. Let me share this experience with you. When I was at Seminole, I was teaching English. I was a Ruth Hooks, not as good as her though. And I assigned an essay. I felt like my students were not writing with passion. And I assigned an essay that they were to write about either the saddest thing that had ever happened to them or the happiest thing that ever happened to them. It was their choice. And I always tried to demonstrate the essay that I wanted them to write using the techniques that they had been assigned. And I wrote about the closing of Northview. I tried to find that essay today. I could not. By the time I got through, this was to a 10th grade class. Those kids were either very sad or just angry. How I couldn't stand it if they closed our school. Of course, that's a small town. They would never close that school. Sure. But they could feel what I felt about the closing of Northview. But I ended my essay in this way. Northview High School itself may be gone, but there are 3 things because of Northview that can never be taken away from you. The first is knowledge, the knowledge that you learned at that school. The second is friends. There are people that you were friends with then that you will be friends with the rest of your life. And the third thing is memories. Those things will never die. Those things will never go away. And we have to remember that as progress is made, changes occur. And this, the closing of Northview, is progress for our city. And we have to accept that there will always be changes in life. But that's sort of how I feel about our school. It will always be our school. I'll always call that building Northview. And we'd have to accept that progress made a difference.
I can't imagine closing our conversation in any better way. You have provided such joy tonight, such memories that you've shared. I can't go through all these comments because there's so many for you to read later on. We'll be here for the next 30 minutes with comments. Mrs. Hemby, I can't thank you enough. This is why I started this conversation series. I wanted to tell the oral history of our football program, as well as to a certain extent our school, because it was teachers like you and Coach Parrish and Mrs. Hooks and many, many of the teachers you've named tonight. You guys were the heartbeat. You guys were the backbone of our school, particularly in those first many, many years. And on behalf of myself and my 2 brothers and my parents and anybody else who has been impacted by you in such a positive way, thank you for sharing tonight. And thank you for what you've done for so many years for so many people.
Thank you for the invitation. It was my honor.
Well, it certainly was our pleasure as well. And guys, that's why we're doing these conversations. You've heard it from one of the very best from Northview, Mrs. Sylvia Hemby, and that's why I wanted to bring her on tonight and share a little bit. You heard a little bit from Carla. We're going to get Carla and Beth on here later on. I'm going to have to talk to them offline later. But guys, gosh, there's so many. Let's see. Steve Stutz says to tell you hello. Kimberly, let me see. Oh, it just rolled on me. Kimberly Holt Leverett, I'm sorry. Let's see. Lori Collier Ingram. Thank you, Judge. Let's see. Chuck Jackson. I'm telling you, when we get offline, Carla or Beth will have to show you who all has popped in here and all the great comments. Coach Parrish. Thank you, Coach, for being here tonight.
Air Wayne, my favorite coach.
Certainly. And you just triggered something with me when you were mentioning songs like Celebration by Kool and the Gang. It gave me a great thing I'm going to post in a little bit or maybe tomorrow, that I want people to post what songs take you back to your high school years. Because I know that there are certain songs that I hear on the radio or hear from time to time, and it instantly takes me back to an event in my life. I think that's the beauty of music. But anyway, I'll conclude for now. But guys, continue to be safe, continue to be patient. We're going to come out of this pandemic, hopefully in the upcoming weeks and months, but keep coming back here, 7 o'clock Central on Wednesday nights for Conversations with Cougars. Y'all have a good night.